Hey everybody, this is David from Shine On Studio. We're here in Oakland, California, and today I'm going to show you a sidecar that I built for the studio. Pretty simple, not too complicated. I got some plywood and some rack rails and custom cut it to fit right next to the desk here so that I can have easy hands-on control. I didn't want it to be part of the Malone desk here because I got most of the preamps and converters and headphone amps, things like that in the desk here that I use regularly for recording, but for my master bus I wanted something just off to the side that wasn't part of the rack, far off, so that I could easily reach down, turn some knobs. Let me show you what I did. This is the new sidecar, and these are processors, outboard gear that I use for the master bus for final mix down. TC Finalizer, Drummer 1968, Aphex 204. This combination typically gives me good results, and you can see I've got everything patched in here through the patch bay and its own power source. And you can see that it's not too deep, and I painted it to give it this antique look, and I'm going to show you how I did that. So let's get cracking.
Okay, the first thing you do is go and get some wood, whatever you want to use. I chose some 3/4 inch plywood. I went down to Home Depot and had them cut the wood for me. And about 2 feet deep is what I wanted. And the next thing I did was measure out the dimensions of the rack so that when I made the cuts, you can see here, the pieces would fit together properly. Now, the rack equipment's 19 inches wide, so you got to make sure that you cut your bottom pieces to match. And the angles on these side pieces here needed to be the right depth and length for the rack rail that I purchased. So here's the final of the two sides that I cut, and I offset them there so you can see they're the same height, and the depths and widths and everything are all the same. So the next thing I did was cut the bottom pieces. Now I used extra pieces of the plywood, some of the scraps, and cut out these pieces here to be exactly 19 inches wide on the inside. Actually a little bit longer, 19 1/4, so that I would have a little bit of flexibility, and made sure that I measured and cut everything equally, and then made my lines always measure twice, cut once. That's the rule. I used a skill saw here to make nice even cuts. I used the guide to make sure that the cut was straight. And once the cuts are complete, I just use some 220 sandpaper to smooth out the edges, smooth off any rough spots on top of the wood. And here you can see the final pieces here just smoothed out. And these are bottom pieces that are going to be attached to the casters on the bottom side of the rack, so wasn't too worried about any of the edges as long as they were nice and smooth. Now the next step was I primed the wood, because I wanted to have a nice thick paint coat. And here you can see my undercoat is red. So I'm going to make the inside of the rack a nice rich red color, and I'm going to antique the outside. So here you can see I started antiquing the outside panels. What I did was just get some black paint and did a dry brush technique, which is where you just get a little bit of paint on the brush and drag it across, and it leaves some of the red spots poking through, as you can see here, which gives it a nice, cool, antique look. Now here's midway through the antiquing process, and you can see here on this panel, when you drag the brush across, the top parts of the wood get some of the paint, and the bottom parts don't. Here's the bottom pieces that I antiqued with the casters attached, and I bolted those in. Now the two front wheels don't have locks, and the two back wheels do have locks. And here's a final version of the rack with the rack rails installed about an inch below the brim of the edge of the sides so that the knobs and everything are recessed. And then here's a video of me putting it into the studio. Very simple. This took me just one day to get everything, cut, measured, painted, and installed, including the cuts in the wood and the rack rails and the casters and everything. It came out maybe close to about $25-30. So it's really affordable, and this is an easy way to make your own custom sidecar, rack, whatever you want to do. I recommend trying this out. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. Again, this is David from Shine On Studio, just helping you make your audio production more smooth and better. Thanks for watching.